And welcome into another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm Kieran Steckley. With me, as always, is a man who is serious about XM radio. He is Cody Stavenhagen. How you doing?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't subscribe to Sirius XM. No offense, Sirius. I guess they're not sponsors, so we're good to talk about this, right?
We can talk about it.
I can listen to anything I want on disposal at my phone. I just don't need Sirius XM.
Well, I mean, I hope you don't need Sirius XM for your Tigers coverage because you're listening to this podcast. We appreciate everybody joining us today. I am a Sirius XM subscriber because I just like to have all radio access to games, all the teams I like, and so I get my money's worth there. And that includes, listening to Dan Dickerson and in this case Dan Petrie on the radio broadcast. If I'm in a pinch, can't really watch or whatever. And, I hope we're a little bit more pleasant to listen to than what Dan Dickerson had to describe over these past couple of days, because the Tigers have been swept. They have now lost 5 of 6 since the All-Star break, which, speaking of the All-Star break, maybe they could use one because it kind of looked like a tired team at times. Cody, overall.
They had a break. I mean, I know some of them were busy at the All-Star game in Atlanta, but they got a break. It's kind of hard to get swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates, man. What? It wasn't just that they lost. It was that the brand of baseball was bad. It was obviously very sloppy in game 2 of that series. The starting pitching did not give you much all series. The bats, they were okay, but struggled getting into games pretty much every day. Didn't feel like the Tigers, right? We've talked about this all year, that a stretch like this was coming. They had kind of the lull where it went from lighting the world on fire to playing closer to 500. And now they've really had I don't want to say bottom fall out, but at least for this short stretch here, the bottom's fallen out. This is the worst baseball they have played all year. I guess that's the question. How concerning is it? I don't want to dismiss it. I don't want to say this doesn't matter. You've lost 6 of 7. You get swept by the Pirates. It's not what you want. But I also think this was going to happen. I kind of agree with what Gleyber Torres said, which is like, it's probably best that this happens now. You get it out of your system. But this can't go on forever, I guess, is just the only counterpoint. Yeah, at some point, you got to play a little better baseball.
Look, I can handle bad pitching starting. I can handle bullpen guys getting exposed. I can handle slumps at the plate, even over aggressiveness on the base pass. The thing that that actually is of concern to me is bucking, and there's a little bit of a pun there, bucking your team identity a little bit by making just, for lack of a better term, elementary mistakes. And we joke about, is momentum a real thing or whatever. Well, I don't know, man. Tuesday was a pretty good case for negative momentum with the amount of just mental errors that we saw the Tigers make that were kind of 2021 and before-esque, if we're being honest. And then even I had flashbacks, they're playing Toronto next. So I don't know if my mind was there, but I had flashbacks to last year. It was last year, right? In Toronto, Matt Vierling standing up, or maybe 2 years ago, standing up, going to second base and stealing second base and, obviously getting out. And, Javier being benched. I was kind of getting just not good memories there. And it was so unfamiliar that on one hand, I do want to say, crumple it up and move on. AJ had the right message, I thought, where it's you got to wear it and you got to move forward. That's the correct message. On the other hand, dude, there's still things that actually should not happen. And I usually don't come across that strongly about okay, well, 162 games, all these plays, something like this will happen, I guess. But I can't tell you the last time a good team, a first place team, had a guy just flat out miss home plate. I can't tell you last time I saw a 60-win team at this point in the year, have a ball dribble past first base and then kind of just lackadaisical as if there was nobody else on, go get the ball and then try to that's the Pirates are doing things we expected the Tigers to do.
Yeah.
You see what
I
I'm
think
saying?
that's what's most concerning. This happened against the Pirates. This wasn't a stretch against the Dodgers or the Yankees or Blue Jays, even like whoever. This was against a bad team.
All we heard was that like they don't hit, and all they did was hit. That's like all they did. And then like some of the offensive output like was a little bit empty calorie-ish. Jake Rogers' home run was not, so I don't want to include that because that makes it a 2-run game there, and you're still in it. But like Jahmai Jones, like credit to him for having the longest home run of the year. Kind of an empty calorie play. It's not necessarily completely his fault, but I can't feel great about it in a low leverage situation. If you skirt across the run like they did today, like if you want to be some positive, all right, Torque's got a couple extra base hits, but like there was output that you would want in situations that was going to like kind of carry you, and there wasn't that at all in this series. And so like it feels like a little bit of a pivoting point that like if there is any sort of demise, we are at the point where we will look to. Like that's where we're at. And or if there's like, an ascension and everything's okay, we will look at like we're gonna look at back at this in either direction, is what I'm saying. Like, so it's not like a nothing time. You see what I'm saying? This is a time that we're going to remember regardless of the direction of the team. And so I don't like seeing the team not play to their identity. It's not about their ability all the time.
All right. Well, here's if this were like talk radio, I think the question would be: is this the ebbs and flows of 162, or do the Tigers not know how to be front runners? And that seems like a little bit of a shallow talking point. But then I started thinking about it, and I don't know. You come back from the break, you have a double-digit game lead in the AL Central. Young team, never been in this situation before. It would be hard for that to not at least seep in the back of your mind. And maybe you think, all right, hey, we got this. And maybe you lose attention to detail. And you combine that with the ebbs and flows on 162. And then you have a really bad stretch. I am not sure that there's not something to that.
Look, I agree with that sentiment you just gave. What I also kind of want to know, because in terms of like, who's, how do you play as a front runner where the hunted in a way, even though, obviously the Pirates aren't hunting you. Who's the guy that can give someone a kick in the keister on this team? I think that's an interesting. I think that's an interesting question. Like we've lauded
what Joey Cora is paid to do, in addition to send people home.
I mean yeah. Well, we got an example of that last year in the aftermath with the runners meeting or whatever. So yes, that is worth remembering. But like I think someone on the field, that'd be great. We've lauded leadership of different guys in different scenarios in this team so far, but they're not to this way that might be needed. It might be, and someone might need to say like, someone might need to get in somebody's face. I think they've been together long enough that they understand where it's coming from, and it can be a good thing overall. But someone might need to get in somebody's face, because what we saw this week was just like poor. It was just poor. It's not the standard that they have set this year. And like I said, we're going to come back to this in either direction. And the trade deadline looming and all these things, like it lets the mind wander, Cody. It lets the mind wander. I think
they're going to return home, and it's going to be like this never happened. It's just my prediction. I think getting their home park is going to do some good.
That may be. And you're walking into a situation with a team that is playing some good ball. So like you better be on it there. We're going to talk about, kind of the main thing today, and it was a mix of good and bad, and that is Troy Melton and his major league debut. We will talk about that, but first, a word from our sponsors.
The way to buy, sell, or trade your cards is Arena Club. It is the top marketplace in the biz to get that done. And Kratz, we love the slab pack situation because rolling through a ton of cards, physically opening them, finding all kinds of commons that end up folded or in the garbage is old news. Why not get a slab pack and get a chance at a card worth thousands of dollars?
I was a common card. It's okay if you don't get me in your slab pack because you put as little as $25 for a slab pack and you could pull out something that's worth thousands of dollars. And it's a keepsake that you get to wait, you know what? It might be worth this much today, but I get to watch the value grow.
And right now you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul and use the code FOUL. That's 20% off your first card purchase or slab pack at arenaclub.com/foul, code FOUL.
All right, coming back here, we've got to see the end result of an ascension to the major leagues. A pretty quick one, really, if you look at it just in a year's time, Cody, and that is Troy Melton, who debuted today, and the corresponding move, Tarek Skubal is going on the paternity list. So congratulations to the Skubal family. Hope everything goes well with that. But Troy Melton, 5 innings, 6 runs, 7 hits, 7 Ks, 2 walks. I think we saw enough to justify the hype. It was just kind of on the it was just kind of on the back end, and also, he got himself a baptism in Major League hitting. Austin Jackson has said repeatedly on this podcast, he's like, you can throw 97, but if I know where it's going to be, it's not going to be a problem. And it didn't take long. Andrew McCutchen gave him a little welcome to the major leagues moment. Fastball 97, I think it was, but caught a little bit, not a terrible pitch, but caught too much of the plate for a guy like Kutch. And that was kind of the theme, is that I thought that he was not hitting the spots needed against major league hitters. And that resulted in a barrage of runs, including a grand slam. But once he settled in, you saw it. You saw exactly why he can be effective. There is velocity there. I think his very, very short scouting report, I think his motion has potential for deception. It's pretty quick. I think that's probably something that's served him well to this point, and in theory could serve him well moving forward. And also, I thought, I was looking at every single time there's a base hit, or especially after, runs, home runs, or whatever, I was kind of looking at body language. And I was trying to assess, okay, you just got touched here pretty quickly, and, after the excitement of a major league debut. And, how are you handling it? And, it never looked like he lost his composure. In fact, he was kind of I don't want to say smiling, because that implies he's happy. Obviously, he wasn't happy, but he was composed. You could tell he was not overwhelmed by everything. And the results, toward the end of his gutting out 5 innings. I think he had 6 strikeouts in his last 14 batters. That tells me that the mental makeup is okay, in which you don't know that unless you're around him or you see him in this kind of setting. And I thought that was an encouraging sign for Troy Melton. So obviously a mixed bag. The results are the results. The ERA is the ERA for one outing, but I think we saw enough to justify the decision and the hype. See if he can put it together. If he gets, we don't still know the plan, but see if he can put it together in his next chance out there.
Yeah, you're never gonna justify anything with one start. Someone added me on X and was like, "You didn't include in your scouting report that he gets rocked." I was like, funny joke, right?
Gotcha.
Struggled to get into the game. Made it okay. I thought 97 challenge fastball to McCutchen and got hit out. He gave up a grand slam. I thought it was an odd pitch call. He threw a 0-0 cutter, missed, went backdoor cutter to a lefty 1-0, leaked over the plate, got absolutely destroyed. I assume it was meant to be backdoor, maybe it was meant to be inside, whatever. It was bad pitch. I thought it was a strange pitch call. He had obviously walked a couple guys, let a couple runners on in that inning, which led to the grand slam. Wasn't what you wanted. You can look here if you're watching on YouTube. Here's his pitch chart. Pretty simple to see what went wrong. There's way too much middle here. Guys tend to learn that in the major leagues. I think Tarek Skubal once learned that, a guy who only lasted 2 innings and gave up 4 runs and a homer in his debut. So I don't have any huge takeaways from Melton's debut. Left too much middle. And then you look at how he comes out of the day, to your point, Kieran, and it's kind of better than it felt. He got 14 whiffs. He had a 30 called strike whiff rate, which is exactly what you want. Got a little better as the game went on. The slider missed 8 bats. He didn't use the cutter as much as he had in the minor leagues. Again, one got hit out, didn't really go back to it after that. But there were some encouraging signs, clearly some stuff to work with. It would have been nice, given the losing stretch you're on, to get a more competitive outing out of him. But overall, hey, first taste of the big leagues. I think we're going to see a little bit more of this kid. You just want him to be sharper in the next 2-3 outings, see if he's able to learn, see if he's able to adjust on the fly in the major leagues.
Yeah, and like I said, those are things that you just don't know until you know, and go back to like the emotional part of this. I always want to make mention of this. Great to see his family, great to see the excitement there. Even the little stuff like after his first strikeout, Dingler throws the ball back to him, but then Dingler's like motioning to the dugout to throw it there. You know, little things like that are really cool. And I think like even like the 5 inning stuff, part of it is not something I want to overlook, because like there's we've seen it over and over again where guys just like let that wear on them, and then it's hard to come back from that in a metaphorical sense, and he was able to do that. So like the cutter aspect, I do think that that's a pitch that in order to throw it that short of a span and into a left, like, that's obviously something he feels like he's comfortable with. It's just didn't work out in that particular instance, and game plans adjust and all that stuff. So like I don't want to overreact to things I don't know, but like that's why I'm looking at I'm just making my observations based on things that I can see. And I think his, like, I want to go back to his motion, the deception aspect of it. If he is able to get ahead in some counts, that like these are all these like little things that are going to work for his favor, like in different situations. And also maybe if you score there early, he comes out there with the lead and he feels like a little bit better, like, with as much as we have harped on the starting pitching in general in this series, and for good reason, it's not like the Tigers bats have been able to like give them help early on. I think the stat is the Tigers are like 42-10 or something like that when they score first. And so like that's something that I don't know what it is on the road, but I imagine it's probably even better on the road in a day game where you can kind of take any sort of crowd out of it. And they weren't able to necessarily do that. So, happy for Troy. I would like to see him again, like to see him at home, but it was also another reminder of how hard this is. I like the schoolable thing there, how hard this is. And like, you love these prospects, the general, love these prospects, but even when they get called up, sometimes it takes time, and sometimes it's worth parting with them in order to get a piece that can help you right now in the major leagues. Just speaking generally. And on that note, there is one name on the market that's everywhere, Cody, but not on the Tigers discussion discourse. And that is Mr. Suarez. Gino, I believe, is what the kids call him. And I think, he might have just hit another home run. He's hot out of the All-Star break, and he's a hot name. He's everywhere, dude. Every single, linked to the Yankees, the Cubs, like all these teams, like, want them a piece of Gino. And radio silent, Tigers-wise. So my question is, should that be the case? And is there deception to the fact that the Tigers are not linked to really anybody that anybody could just come up with a list? You see what I'm saying? There's not really a whole lot of like.
Yeah. Okay, yes, I get. Like, when are they ever though? Like, this is a tight-lipped front office. If you haven't learned that lesson by now, pay attention. Pay attention in the off season. No one had linked them to Gleyber Torres or really Tommy Kahnle. Flaherty was a little bit for obvious reasons. John Brebbia was not really a name that was on people's radar when that happened. They don't telegraph their moves. They don't talk to a lot of people. They don't give a lot of information to reporters, whether it's local or national. I think that is one large reason you are not hearing a lot publicly about the Tigers. My sense, and I can't claim to know exactly what's going on in their brains, but it seems like the focus is on the relief market right now. Suarez, I wonder if that's radio silent because they're not interested in him, Kieran. I don't know that, but it's going to be a heavy market. That is a seller's market for Eugenio Suarez. The Tigers, look, we talked about this. I said last episode, I've really gone back and forth on how I feel about making that sort of acquisition. I think I've thought about more. I think I'm out. The thing that sometimes pulls me back in is just the power. The stat, every World Series winner since 2019 has ranked in the top 4 in Major League Baseball in home runs. Power, the ability to change the scoreboard plays in the postseason. But making a move to go get Gino Suarez would completely unravel the style of team you have built. He would be plugged in theory, as your third baseman, slightly below average defender. That's going to put Colt Keith, who's been really good now, at DH, except Kerry Carpenter is going to come back, and then you're going to have more McKinstry in outfield. You're going to have more Vierling in outfield. You're going to have Kerry. You're going to have Wenzel. That's a lot of right fielders. Some of them can play center. Well, Kerry, Colt, DH, like, do you really want to be taking either of those guys out of the lineup every day? It limits your flexibility. It limits your ability to chase matchups late in the game. You're putting a lot of chips into the Gino Suarez basket. Eugenio, he happens to be playing probably the best stretch of baseball in his entire career. Now, he's a proven power hitter. He also ranks in the bottom 11 percentile in whiff rate. So if you're complaining about Riley Green, you're kind of getting another player with a very similar profile. And I do worry a little bit, like, what if the bottom falls out? What if he gets traded to somewhere in the second half and hits a slump that it feels like he's due for a little bit? That's a natural worry. Even if he doesn't, he's not going to come cheap. All right. The Tigers ain't going to be trading Max Clark to go get Eugenio Suarez. And I'm not sure you're going to be able to cobble together the type of offer that gets the deal done from some of your mid-tier type prospects. Are you willing to trade major league ready talent like a Jace Young or a Justin Henry Malloy? That's a tougher question, something I'll be interested to see. Me personally, I just don't think it's quite worth it. It's a little risky now to go in the postseason with the current amount of power you have, but the last team to not be in the top 4 in home runs, it was the Washington Nationals. The Tigers, offensively, they don't have a Soto necessarily, but they're built a little more in the mold of those Nationals in terms of kind of like the scrappiness, the getting contributions up and down the order. This was never constructed to be a team that was going to lead the league in homers. It's gotten them this far. Maybe it comes back to bite them in the playoffs, but maybe it comes back to bite you down the long haul if you give up the farm for a third baseman, kind of a one-dimensional player just ring chasing. I'm not sure it's the move. I don't know for sure what the Tigers are thinking, but I bet that that's kind of their thought as well.
All right. Well, after this break, I'm going to tell you the number one thought that you have to have when you imagine the trade deadline. But first, a word from our sponsors. Nothing says summer like long days, clutch plays, and firing off a few bets on the game, all with DraftKings Sportsbook. Never bet on baseball before? It's easy. Pick a guy to go yard, hammer some live odds mid-game, or just ride with your squad and hope for the best. No spreadsheets, just vibes and dingers. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. It's code FOUL for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-9777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. All right. Well, Cody touched on something there that I think is actually very key. The key point is, like, when you're imagining what the Tigers could do, should do at the deadline, is how comfortable are you, the general you, with the Tigers, which you would imagine the team's a puzzle that fits pretty well, right? 60 wins, all that stuff. Like, take the macro approach, that everything fits pretty well. The front office synergy with coaching staff, players bought in, all that stuff. You're not, most likely, going to find a perfect fit to your construction at the trade deadline. That's generally not how it works, because you have, there's a little bit of a crunch. Teams, especially in the expanded playoff era, have a little bit of a more muddy picture about what they actually can do and what they'd be willing to do. So you might have to overspend. You might have to find someone who's not a great fit, like Cody kind of laid out with Suarez. So what you have to determine is a simple question. Is that worth it? And some guys, it might be. And some guys, it might not. So is it worth it to go? Because I'm thinking there might be even something we're not even thinking about. In fact, it's almost a guarantee there's something out there that we're not thinking about. Like a center fielder, for instance. Just not anyone in particular, but we're not getting a lot of production at center right now. Maybe we should go get a center fielder someone. So are you comfortable with essentially punting on Parker Meadows this season? Is that worth it?
I'm not, but it's a thought.
So but those are the things that you kind of have to consider. Is that worth it to get something that doesn't fit?
What if I told you I think there's a player who perfectly fits everything you're trying to do? You're going to think I'm crazy. You're going to think I'm on drugs. Old friend Willie Castro. I'm dead serious. All around the diamond. Switch hitter. 870 OPS against left-handed pitching this season. You can take him in a little lower pressure role if you get him to Detroit. Doesn't have to play every single day, but he can play infield. He can play outfield. Doesn't play any of them particularly well, but he's obviously become a better outfielder than I ever thought he would be. He's versatile, hits from both sides, fast. You would not have to change anything. He would be such a plug-and-play weapon who happens to be destroying right-handed pitching. The caveat there is you would have to make an in-division trade. Yohan Duran, Griffin Jacks also seem like great fits. Would the Tigers trade in division? It's another great question that we don't really have the answer to. There's precedent of the Twins doing it. That's how the Tigers got Sawyer Gibson-Long, but that was a deal when the Tigers were sellers. It was the Al Avila front office. Would Scott Harris want to give up some young players to a division rival? I could certainly see and understand some hesitance there, but I tend to think the best reliever fits might be right there in your division. And I think a name I hadn't thought of until a couple days ago fits the positional roster as well as anyone in the league.
I'm down for some Willie Castro now, because of the things that you said. And also, we talked about, and then some other people have kind of said, hey, is there any way, could you add a little speed to the team, for a stretch run here and in the postseason? Willie Castro is not like a burner, but his sprint speed is 74 percentile. His base running run value, 75 percentile. Batting run value is 78. So just, rounding out the numbers there. Fielding's not going to make you brag, but we already know this. I like that a lot. And also, I'm glad you brought up the division thing, because I've sort of any pitcher from Minnesota or from Cleveland, I've kind of mentally crossed that off, because I just, not even from the Tigers perspective, I just don't know if Cleveland or Minnesota is going to want their guys winning a division title.
If you're a seller, it shouldn't matter. Why? Who cares?
Well, if you're a seller that you recently had to come to that realization, that hurts a little bit more. It's a little bit more prideful, especially if it's a guy that you might have to face for a couple years, like in Cleveland's case with those back end guys. So I just don't think that's going to happen. because they also think we're sellers this year. It's not like Tigers where they're like, all right, we'll sellers and we'll kind of figure it out. Like, like they're gonna, it's a sell to get back to it in that instance. So I just kind of wrote. So it's kind of unfortunate that the best relievers or even a lot of the best pitching options are in your division, and that's a price hike or even just like out of the question. That's probably one of the more unfortunate aspects of, you know, kind of this year's trade deadline dynamic. Not something you can't overcome, but you know, part of it.
So I think they need a bat. I think if you're looking for takeaways from this past series, it's like you need a little insurance here with this lineup. I don't think you need to mortgage everything to get a Eugenio Suarez, but I think a right-handed bat, a capable player, a little bit of a track record to help you out. Insurance in the case of injury, God forbid, you know, one of your big boppers gets hurt, that would be killer. I think you need to strengthen this lineup a little bit. I've tried to think of some names. I mentioned Ahmed Rosario. Today I mentioned Willie Castro, Randall Grichuk, a guy I liked a lot in the offseason. Diamondbacks teammate. Still right-hand platoon bad. He's more outfield, but he could just slide into the Jahmai Jones DH thing. And you still have some depth in AAA, in Jahin and Jace. Like, there are guys who can come up and help, but I think you just need to pad this thing. I think you need to feel a little bit better. If we're being real, I feel as though the Tigers lineup overachieved a little bit in the first half. That doesn't mean they're not a good lineup. I think we're past that. Like, I think these guys can play ball, but are they a top 8 offense? Are they the second best run scoring offense in Major League Baseball? That's banking a lot on Javi, on McKinstry, I think Torque's probably going to keep hitting some homers, but on consistent production from Spencer Torkelson, it's asking a lot. I think you got to go get a bat. I'll be fascinated to see if they actually want to do that, and two, who they identify. Because like I said, I've tried to get outside the box, but that's the other thing about the Tigers. Rarely do they do the obvious thing that you see on lists of trade candidates, or that we all can sit here and think of off the top of our heads, or even if you do a little research, they're usually looking at these things a little deeper, and they usually do something that, let's be honest, we're wrong about most of the time.
Yeah, and you know, like, I think a good way to look at it from a bat perspective that I would like, 2 words, like regression protection.
Yes.
Or regression insurance, whichever phrase you like better. I think like that part of that's like an injury thing. Part of it's like some of these dudes that that you've loved to see this year have also played a little bit more than you thought they would to this point. So it would be nice to deepen that well a little bit. And then, like the proven track record, all that stuff, like those guys exist now. And I'm sure they've been identified by the front office. And I'll be curious to see if anything comes to fruition. I was going to say linked to, but as we discussed, no one's getting linked to the Tigers. All right. That was fun. We're going to obviously talk a lot of trade deadline over the next week. It's going to dominate my thought process. It's going to dominate Cody's free time. And we appreciate all you guys following along with us at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran _Steckley. Pod page is at Tiger Territory _ YouTube, Instagram, Apple, Spotify. You guys know what to do. Wherever you get your podcasts, like and subscribe, rate and review. So for Cody Stavenhagen, I'm Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.